All right, so we're here today to talk about holidays. Of course, I think most of us get excited about holiday season, and it should be all about celebrations and having fun and relaxing. But for a lot of our children that have special needs, this can invoke a lot of stress and chaos, unfortunately. So hopefully you'll find some tips that will be useful for you today. Let's see, the two things that we're going to talk about first is talk about anticipation or planning for holiday, and then how to better or best prepare to try to make the best of your holiday season. So some potential challenges for children or adults with special needs during holidays. There could definitely be some sensory overload. There's lots of different smells happening, lots of different lights. There might be extra people, extra noises. There might be people that are wanting to touch you more or be in each other's space. So if you have children that have any of these anxieties or sensory overloads, then there's the potential for there to be a higher amount of stress. And then of course, with holiday season too, you have a change in routine. So, you don't just get up and go to school and come home and do your dinner and do your video games and have your bedtime routine, right? You have lots of things that are out of the typical plan for the day. And so unfortunately, that can also lead to stress as well if your child doesn't know what to anticipate. There might be more people in your home. Maybe the schedule is all off, so maybe bedtime ends up being pushed later, or dinner time's earlier than usual, or things of that sort. And then of course, unfamiliar sights, sounds, people, places. So the impact of this on your child is that they could become dysregulated. This could mean that they withdraw from you or from people. Maybe they don't want to go wherever it is that you're headed to, whether that's a family member's home, or maybe you're trying to go into a mall to try to do some Christmas shopping, or whatever it happens to be. They might have a more agitation than typical, or they might have a really short fuse. They might have more meltdowns. Their sleep schedule might be even more dysregulated than it could already be. They could be a lot more physically restless. Now, if your child already moves a lot, then they might even be more, jumping around and running around the house and things like that. Also, they could be more impulsive. And the impact on the family, you and the family, is that you might end up missing out on events that you want to go to. You might stay home. You might have to limit the types of traditions that you're used to doing with your family or wanting to do with your family. You might start having some harder feelings to deal with, feeling like you're not the best parent, feeling like you're being judged by other people. And this, of course, all these thoughts and emotions can lead to your own dysregulation as well, unfortunately. So even though holiday time is supposed to be fun, we understand that sometimes it ends up not being that fun. So here's some things that you can do. You can anticipate. So you want to think ahead as much as you can and plan. Of course, you won't be able to plan for everything, but the more that you can think about what to expect, the better that you can set this up for your child as well and teach them what to expect. So are you going to be somewhere where there's going to be a lot of crowds? And is that something that's really stressful for your child, being around a lot of people or a lot of noise? Will you have to bring them to a store or other buildings where there's going to be a lot of people? Are there going to be certain foods that you need to know about? So are there certain smells that you know that your child doesn't like, or foods that you know that they won't eat? Do you need to try to plan for that to make sure that you have your own food that your child will eat? Do you know what time food will be served? I think that's very important. I think in a lot of traditional holiday stuff, that's part of the tradition is eating, with the family. So you'll want to know what that time is. Start thinking about how much time your child can tolerate around people, or what level of stimulation you think that they can tolerate. You might also want to think about wherever it is that you're going, or if you're staying home, are there places that your child can go that are quieter, or that they can get kind of like a sensory regulation place. Who will be present at the gathering that might need to be talked to beforehand. So maybe if you have a family member that really likes to hug and kiss everybody and your child is not a hugger, then you may want to talk to your family member beforehand and just remind them like, hey, he's probably going to get pretty upset if you hug him. Maybe try a fist bump or a high five instead or something like that. Or perhaps you have family members that don't understand if they get a gift for your child and maybe your child doesn't show appreciation the way that they would expect them to. That might be something that you could at least try to prime your family member on before. Be like, Johnny's still learning how to say thank you. Even if he doesn't say it, it was very kind of you to be thinking of him and getting him a gift, something like that. Are there any activities that you can have your child help participate in when you are preparing to help make it more fun for them? More on anticipating. Are there any daily routines that will be changing that you want to try to prepare your child for? So for example, if they usually get tablet time from 3 to 4 p.m., but you're going to be at grandma's house from 3 to 5 p.m. and that won't be regular tablet time. Is there a different time of day that tablet time could be available or something of that nature? What will fill the days during a change in routine? So what are some other ways that you're planning to keep your child occupied if their routine is off? Are there any physical challenges or barriers that your child has that might make it hard to participate? What childcare will be needed to get in shopping or attend to special events? So if there's certain things that you feel like you're a part of that really your child just can't be, a part of, like maybe you like to go caroling or something like that, and that's just something that your child's not going to participate in. Is that something you can plan for and maybe get respite for while you are participating in that? What kind of decorations, traditional icons, objects will be safe, and how will your child respond to changes in the home? So maybe if your child has a lot of dysregulation when things are moved in the home, then putting a Christmas tree up, for example, or putting stockings up, that might actually cause some dysregulation for your child. So what are some things that you can do beforehand to try to prime them? Could there be a book that you could read with them, or could you make a little social story describing what to expect? All right, on planning and preparing. So advanced preparation is key to increase the success of your holiday celebrations with your child. If you are planning to bring your child while you go shopping, you may want to think about going during times where there's fewer people at the store, maybe earlier hours or later hours. Or if you're going to other events where there's going to be a lot of people, maybe you can go earlier when the event first starts versus in the middle of the event. This one's probably a no-brainer, and you guys probably do this anyways, but bring along snacks and food that your child likes to eat. A lot of our children with special needs are very picky eaters, and there's usually very traditional food that you have around holidays. So if your child doesn't like that traditional food, then you want to make sure that there's other options for them. Be prepared to leave the event that you're going to early. That might include you being closer to the door so that if you need to go in a hurry, that you don't have to walk across the whole building or across the whole house. So you don't have to say bye to everyone. You can just kind of sneak out. And if you need to, tell your family members in advance, hey, we may not stay the whole time. We're going to see how Johnny does. Think about what other things your child might need that they're comfortable with. So maybe if they have a favorite blanket, or if they have a favorite toy, or if they do have a lot of trouble with noise and they're willing to tolerate headphones, is that something that you could bring? Especially if you're going to be going somewhere overnight, what do they have in their bed that is very comforting to them? that you could bring a favorite book. If you already use timers in the home and that's helpful, then that might be something to just remember to use even if you're out of routine too. You know, if your child is wanting to leave an event and you tell them, hey, we'll go in 20 minutes, and maybe set a visual timer so that they can see like when they're going to be able to go. Or it can also be helpful if they're wanting to do something that's really fun and they have to wait, like opening gifts. Prepare your child in advance for what to expect at gatherings or changes to your home. You can use pictures, like if you're going to have people over, or if you're going to be visiting somebody's house, maybe a picture of their house. Or if there's, you know, maybe if you had a holiday last year and there's pictures of it, then you could show those to your child to remind them of what it looks like. Of course, books or stories can be helpful too. If it's possible, you can try practicing skills with your child beforehand too. And this kind of depends on how old your child is and, you know, what their comprehension level is at that moment. But, you know, if, for example, you really value when someone says thank you after being handed a gift and opening a gift, and that might be something you can talk to your child beforehand. You know, when we open a gift, we should say thank you, something like that. And even if there's ways to practice that beforehand. I know with my daughter, I've practiced wrapping little gifts. They aren't actually gifts, they're toys that she already has, but we've practiced wrapping them. And then I would hand them to her and we would practice that little social exchange, because saying thank you is very important in my family. More on planning and preparing. And reminders, I guess, is that, you know, some children with special needs, they might need a quiet place to retreat to. So again, thinking about where in your environment that could be. Maybe there's a bedroom that you could go to at someone else's house, or maybe there's a bathroom you could retreat to, or a backyard or something like that. If your child's touch sensitive, you might want to let relatives know, or even try to talk to any other children that are going to be there, especially if they're trying to play with your child and your child's very touch sensitive. Are there any things that you want to be thinking of in terms of safety? So if there's candles, or if there's a fireplace or a hot oven, you know, trying to warn family members also to keep those up and out of reach. Will your child try to play with decorations? Is that something that you need to plan for? Maybe plan extra toys that you have in your pocket or in your purse that you can bring out that to offer instead of the decorations. If your child is trying to unwrap gifts that aren't theirs, then again, that might be something where you can direct them to either gifts that are theirs, or if that's just it's not gift opening time, then what are some toys that they could play with to keep themselves occupied? Are there any things that are that cause fear or anxiety for your child during the holidays? So some children are very scared of Santa, or, you know, we're past Halloween, but some children get very scared of Halloween decorations. I know it's not Easter time yet, but Easter bunny. There can be other things that can be fearful for children too. So again, you can either try to prime your child beforehand and let them know, like, hey, Santa might be there. You know, what should we do if we see Santa? You know, how do you want to respond to that? And I think it's okay, you know, if children are scared, not necessarily to push them. I think that's really up to the parent to decide. But sometimes when you push someone more, when they're having a lot of anxiety, that can make the anxiety worse. And sometimes acknowledging that and giving them a choice to take a break from it might be the best thing in that situation. And it might also cause you a little less stress because you don't feel like you're pushing your child. A little more on routines. So with holiday season, routines usually are at least somewhat dysregulated, especially with your children being out of school, if your child is school age. So if there is anything that you can keep the same routine, I suggest to do that. If you have any ways to make it visual for your child, that can also be super helpful. So having a color-coded calendar, or even, I know some people will use visual schedules where they have little icons with Velcro that they can, move over to show. That's also really helpful, because that way if plans change, then it's something that you can take off and edit as you go, and you don't have to feel like it's something that was set in stone. There's a good balance here. So, when you're out on break and there's, holiday season, you don't want to fill up your child's day too much with all of this new stuff, but you also don't want to have complete downtime, because I think both can be very dysregulating for somebody. So there is this nice little website that my coworker had put in here, thesensiblelife.com, and there's a lot of different activities and suggestions of things that you could do. When we have time at the end, I'll put that in the chat as well for you guys for activities. If there's anything that you can do to help your child participate in the festivities, that can be fun too. And you want to give that a little bit of thought and what you're comfortable with. So, if your child is not safe around hot things, but maybe you do a lot of baking, are the things that they can do with helping mix or helping pour. And, that's just one example. I can see some other little fun activities here, like these little hand ornaments. Or are there special songs that you can sing together and dance? Things like that. You want to try to set up your child for success. So pre-arranging conversations with relatives can be helpful too. A lot of times our children have trouble answering questions. So instead of posing it as, what do you like about the holiday? Or what's your favorite animal or something like that, then you could already tell your family member, like, oh, she really likes cats. And then your family member could say, I hear you really like cats, instead of a question, right? So that way, if your child hears the family member say cats, they might be interested, even if they can't engage in conversation yet. And then the family member could continue and say, like, oh, well, I have 2 cats at home. I have a fluffy white one and I have a stripy one. And that just might be a way to help prep your family or friends, that maybe you don't see all the time and they don't know your child as well, to help build some of that relationship and make your child feel more included. All right, more tips. Remember that holidays and holiday breaks are intended to be relaxing time and kind of as a reset, so that you can go back to work and school feeling more refreshed or rested. So keep that in mind as you're making your holiday schedule. I think a lot of times, a lot of people want to do events, and especially now, kind of almost coming out of COVID times, I think there's a lot more events popping up and a lot of more people wanting to get together and do holidays. And rightfully so. We've been very cooped up for a few years. And so just a reminder not to overdo it, and pick the things that you really want to do and that are really important for you, but don't feel like you have to do everything. If you're comfortable, take these opportunities to educate your family and friends about your child, whether your child has a diagnosis or maybe you're just a early start, family and just getting a little bit of support here. Of course, you don't have to do this, but it can be helpful to prime your family just as much as it is to prime your child. It's probably best to try to do that privately, though, and not in front of your child. Whether you think they understand or not, it could be a little embarrassing for them. Try to be flexible. I think this one is so important. So, relaxing what you are expecting out of the holidays and what you think of as fun for you and your child, right? So I think a lot of people have expectations about how holidays are supposed to go, or what traditions you're supposed to fulfill, or what you're supposed to do on the different holidays. And, just trying to pick your battles a little bit. What truly is important to you, and what's important that you do with your child, and what are you okay letting go with? And I think that's going to be different for everybody. Don't rush. So make sure that you leave enough time to enjoy the activities. You know, don't feel like you have to hop from thing to thing. Give your child some expectations as well. So maybe if you guys are getting ready to leave your house to go to an event and you know that your child doesn't really want to go to the holiday event, you know, reminding them how long they're going to be there, or maybe something that they could look forward to when they get there. Like maybe there is a special treat that they'll get to do when they're there. And not just getting up and going, but kind of, you know, talking to them about it beforehand. A lot of children with special needs, they do like to be given notice before it's time to transition. Scheduling downtime. Don't overbook yourself. I think I've already said kind of this, but I think it's important to have some stuff stay the same. And there's some things that it's okay to relax on during the holiday season. So maybe you don't have to get up and get dressed right away, or maybe you don't have to eat dinner at 5:30 strict p.m. You know, it is a time where a lot of people think of holidays as time where you spend more time with your family, right? And do family activities together. So think about some things that your child likes to do that you could do together. Before making commitments, you know, unfortunately, I think we have to put all our children's needs first. And this gets really tricky when you have these high expectations about how you want holidays to go. But if you expect them to go a certain way and your child is not ready for all of those expectations, and it's probably going to lead to a lot of stress for you and your child. So again, really think about those commitments, about what you've said you're going to do or what you want to do, and decide what really is going to be feasible. So if you know that your child can do about an hour at somebody else's house before they start to get dysregulated, then plan for that. You know, and maybe mealtime is really the most important for you. So if your holiday party that you're going to be attending is 4 to 7 p.m. and dinner is planned around 6, and maybe you don't show up till 6, or maybe you show up right at 4 for an hour and then assume that you'll be leaving early if maybe the dinner part isn't as important to you or your family. I think I already said this one, but sit where there's an easy escape route too, if you feel like you really do need to leave early. And this goes for no matter where you are. You know, if you're at a family member's house, or maybe you're at a religious service, or maybe a school performance for one of your other older children. Many kids with special needs, sometimes they present younger, or their interests might be of someone that might be younger as well. So, you know, if your older child still enjoys things that maybe a 3 or a 4-year-old would enjoy, you know, that's something to keep in mind, because if you're giving them items that they're not going to be interested in, then that also might lead to some stress. Give yourself permission to walk away from difficult situations. I think along with our own expectations, I think that there's a lot of family expectations involved with holidays, right? So not only do we want things to go a certain way, but the rest of our family expects things to go a certain way. And they may not have that full empathy with the types of stressors that your child might have, or some of the things that are difficult. So if that's something that you feel like you can't really talk about with your family, then you may just have to, you know, set that in your mind beforehand, that they're not going to be okay with this, and that's okay. I have to do what's good for me. Or if you feel like you can have that discussion with your family beforehand and just prime them about what you need, then that's fine too. Get support when you need it. So I think all parents need respite sometimes, and it's incredibly important for a parent that has a child with special needs. If there are certain things that you enjoy about holiday season that you really don't think you'll be able to enjoy being with your child, whether that's an adult event, or maybe it is a family event, but it's something I know some people like to do. This is for Christmas, if you celebrate Christmas. Some people do Secret Santa, and there's a lot of gifts in the middle, and you have to pick one, and people are stealing gifts, and there's a lot of chaos with that type of game, right? So I can imagine that if I was playing that while I have my special needs child with me, that might be really hard for me to focus on that and actually have a good time. So maybe that's a time where I would ask for, respite and see if someone else could watch my child while I engage in that activity, if that's really something that's important to me. That's just one example, but if there's something that really is important and you don't know if there's a way for you to enjoy it while also watching your child, then I think it's okay to think about that and think about, is there a way for me to go to this event without my child? And then plan something else that you can do with your child to help celebrate that holiday as well. Holidays can be stressful for anybody, whether you have children or not, or whether you have children with special needs or not. So again, I think that this is from a different website, but it kind of echoes the same things. It's time to take a step back and look over, the year and assess yourself and maybe things that you want to be grateful for. Well, and this last sentence too, it's a great time to spend time with your family and the people that you love, right? And it might be different than how you celebrated prior to having a child with special needs or prior to having children. But it doesn't mean that it has to be less, right? It can just be different traditions that you find. So maybe if your child really can't do baking or food at all right now, and you used to love baking, then maybe that's something that you are able to do by yourself. And then maybe you find a different activity that, that your child will enjoy, that you can do together. This is an acronym that came from A Day in Our Shoes. Again, this is all information that was found by one of my coworkers. I'm not as familiar with this one, but I'm going to read through it. So SWEEPS is the acronym. These are the types of suggestions that they say to try to plan for to try to still make your holidays run as smooth as possible. So sleep, of course, if you have a lack of sleep, then everybody's going to be in chaos. So trying to keep your sleep routine in check, or still making sure that your child gets the sleep that they need, is incredibly important, even if a lot of your other part of your routine is off. If you have work that has to do, try to set a time to do it before holiday season, so you don't feel like you have to focus on work while also doing these family activities, because the last thing you want to do is make holidays that are supposed to be fun feel like just another chore or another thing that has to be done. Eating, I think during holiday seasons, a lot of the food that we end up consuming is not the healthiest. So making sure that your child still gets some sort of nutrients can be helpful, and help, make sure that their bowel movements are still normal and all of that. Emotions. So everyone gets sensory overload sometimes, and I think with holidays that can especially be the case. If there's anything that you can do, and again, it talks to predict and prevent. So if there's things that you can do to help reduce some of these stressful emotions, of course, then that would lead to less stress. And then play. So having fun, exercising, getting outside, moving, all of those things are incredibly important to continue to do while you are off on the holiday season. And this S is cut down, a little bit. but saying no. So again, don't overextend yourself. Don't feel guilty if you have to say no. Do what you feel like you want to prioritize with your family. This one's a lot easier said than done, but set a calm example. So for many of our children that experience anxiety, if we also are mirroring anxiety when they are feeling anxiety, that does not help them calm down. So trying to stay as relaxed as possible, even when they are not feeling relaxed, can help try to re-regulate them and co-regulate, right? So if you let holidays stress you out, then there's a lot more chance that your child will also experience that stress as well. Here's a cute little image that Denise had found how to reduce holiday stress in children. Stick to their usual routine as much as possible. Make sure you get outside. Don't overschedule yourself. Make time for peace and quiet. Remind them the holidays are about gratitude and kindness. And manage their sugar intake.